اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق وهذه إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. الحمد لله رب العالمين، أفضل الصلاة وتام تسليما على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ورضي الله تعالى عن هذا السادات التابعين علماء آمنين وأئمة أربعين مجتهدين مقلدين. رب العالمين. Welcome to the Soullutionz podcast. We presented a discussion on our youth and who's responsible for them. I'm one of your hosts, Imam Muhammad Abdullah Ameen, along with Amir Khalil, Abdullahi, Imam Malik Robinson, and brother Saleh, Mujeeb. So, alhamdulillah, this topic tonight, it stems from a main broad topic that we have to in concern to the youth and our children and the next generation and the things that is the fiqh al-wahi, things that are going on in the current events now. With the few weeks ago of the behavior happened with the youth and assaulting a elderly person, and the youth that was murdered on South Street last month. All of this is events. Both of these events affects this topic right here. We decided to discuss this as a whole. All of us are responsible for our youth. The Muslim community, we're responsible for our Muslim youth, and not just our Muslim youth, but non-Muslim youth as well. As our responsibility in being Muslims, we must convey the message. We must give the da'wah. We must practice what the da'wah that we're giving as well. Apparently, in our day and time, many of us are practicing, and many of us aren't practicing. Many of us are conveying the message, and many of us aren't. So all is the responsibility falls on us. One of the things that we have to keep in mind in regards to our youth is proper rearing and doing our best in raising them and rearing them. When they get to the age of mukallaf and they become a later older mukallaf, responsible individual, and they choose to go a different route, the burden is on them, and we as parents or elders are not to blame for their decision. It's especially after we did, especially after we have did our best in rearing them and directing them and instructing them towards guidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives the guidance. Is the one who guides. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who makes Muslims and chooses people to be Muslims. So
Allah Ta'ala is in control of that. He's the one who gives guidance. He's the one who makes Muslims. However, however, Allah Ta'ala also put tools and people in place to help in the direction. Helping, facilitating learning and knowledge for the new Muslim and for the youth that we're raising up in the community. That responsibility is not our choice. That's the obligation that we have to do. And we have to try, we have to do our best. In my back in my time when I was a youth, a lot of the things that's going on right now with the youth wasn't necessarily going on in the same caliber and perspective as it were when I was growing up, when I was a youth. Given the fact that where I come from, the dynamics was a little bit different than in Philadelphia and in New York and in Detroit and in Flint and in Milwaukee and all places all over the country. It was different. It was different dynamics. It was a little bit more structure in my time when I was a youth. It doesn't mean that we didn't get involved in foolishness and nonsense. We did. However, there were people that was there and in place to give some direction, to give some structure, to give some order. And they was respected enough to where when that order was given, it was carried out. And this time now, it's like no one is like listening to anyone. The only youth that we're able to actually reach are those who are in our who consistently attend the masjids. You know what I'm saying? Consistently attend the masjids. How we can offset some of the behavior and the violence and stuff that are going on among our youth is that us as men, we got to come out of the masjids and hit the streets. We got to go out there to the street corners. We got to encourage our youth that are attending the masjid to join us in trying to reach out to the youth, to these young brothers and these young sisters, and being involved and consistent in being involved. And trying to give direction. That's what we would have to do. That would be the first step in helping bringing about a solution to the problem. Because in reality, it's going to get way worse before it get better. Just like many of us in our middle ages and our late 30s and early 40s, and Allah Ta'ala blessed us with some understanding, some information. That the same way that we're preparing for the advent of Imam Mahdi, we have to prepare our youth for. They are our next generation. You know what I'm saying? What happens to Islam or to the face of Islam when we die out? We already seen what is happening to the face of Islam, and in our generation when our old heads have died out. Some of us, we've been fully equipped and prepared, and some of us not, or haven't been. So the ones who haven't been, who are not fully equipped and prepared, those who are looking up to them, what type of direction are they going to give them? They're not going to give them a sense of direction. So, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. This is This is some of the things that we're going to touch on in this discussion, in this topic. And inshallah ta'ala, like, share, subscribe, share it to your Facebook page, share it to the groups that you're in. This topic is an ongoing topic. You know what I mean? The youth are very important in our society. They're very important to the future. They're part of our legacy, and they're gonna leave a legacy as well. So we have to make sure that we prepare them like we was prepared, um, to face the issues that we're gonna come across and we're gonna face. You know, so I see Amir Khalil done already logged in and chimed on and waiting in the background. Inshallah, I'm gonna turn the mic over. You know, I've talked like 11 minutes. I'm saying turn the mic over. Amir Khalil, you want to chime in? Okay. No, we don't take to the streets like the nation used to do. You know what I'm saying? We take to the streets. We take to the streets in our in our method of taking to the streets, and not being opportunists. Because if it would be opportunists, every little issue we'll take to the streets. You know what I'm saying? The nation, they will take to the streets, but they will not really get actually physically involved. You know what I'm saying, with the youth in them streets. I remember in Chicago when the Nation of Islam, they had a security force, and they used to get the contracts for to do security in the Walgreens and a lot of the places and in the projects. Like I was saying, they would have the security force. They had contracts for Walgreens and different places, um, being man security or loss prevention, and then they had got contracts to be the security in the projects before CHA had their own security force. This was like back in the early '90s, right? Some projects they were successful in, like in the Henry Horn. Well, not in the Henry Horners, but Rockwell Gardens. Rockwell Gardens was the projects that was up around Western, and it was close. You know, closer to the Airbnb that we had rented when we was in Chicago last year for our annual event that we do at Masjid Dawah. Apparently, you know what I'm saying, it was and I think some Robert Taylor home buildings and Ickes and Hillard Homes, the Nation of Islam had security contracts in, but it was only a short period of time because they got ran up out of them projects doing security in there. Then later on, a few years later, CHA, Chicago Housing Authority, um, had appointed a police force, and they was, you know what I'm saying, and during this time when they did that, they had a police station in just about every project. Cabrini Green, I believe, was the one project that they didn't have a police station in, because you know what I'm saying, Cabrini Green, it was buck wild. They had snipers on the roof. You know what I'm saying, the police, they come in there, they was getting sniped, you know what I'm saying, getting ran up out of there. They didn't have a whole lot of control there. I remember when the first female mayor, Mayor Byrne. It was a white lady. She had won the first election for mayor, and then the second election she was running for mayor, and then she had moved. She had got an apartment in Cabrini Green for like one day, but she made it seem like she was gonna be that was gonna be her resident, but she only lived in that apartment like one day. It was like real rough around that time, and she was like she used to pay. She was paying for people to help her with her campaign. I remember one time she had paid I ain't gonna say paid us, but Rukins, to help her in her campaign. It was like $10,000, and then she had did a press conference, and then said, I don't know why the El Rukins are supporting me. I don't really need their support, right? And the thing is, she was paying for it. She was paying for our support, and as a result, what I'm saying, we end up supporting Harold Washington. And I think Harold Washington had won the election then. Then later on, that bit us in the face too. You know what I'm saying? Before he had got assassinated. And I said assassinated because he was a very healthy man. You know what I'm saying? He was a very healthy man. He wasn't sickly. You know what I mean? He was poor. They poisoned him. So that was the dynamics. You know what I'm saying? I was mentioning about the Nation of Islam. That's how I got to that story. Got to talking about the Cabrini Greens and different projects because they had contracts with them.
Right.
The security there. So, but the thing is, the way that they would take to the streets, it was more so like an opportunity. They was not really like, they wasn't like the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers in the 60s, when they took it to the streets, they went to the Disciples, they went to the Stones, they went to the Viceroys, they went to the Kings, they went to the Spanish, the Spanish Cobras, they went to the Spanish Gangs of Disciples, the MLDs. They went to all of them to try to politicize them, right? Giving lectures, and they had the LSD, the Lower Stones and Disciples. That was like the first peace treaty that they had before the universal communication among brothers that had sparked in the 80s, right? The Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, he was like, he had like tried to build relationships with them, and because of the COINTELPRO, the feds, they had wrote a letter to Fred Hampton, telling him that Jeff Fort, Imam Malik, had a hit out on him. They wrote a letter to Jeff Fort saying that the feds wrote a letter to Jeff Fort to Imam Malik saying that Fred Hampton had a hit out on him. And when they had police assassinated Fred Hampton, it was his funeral. The Reverend Jesse Jackson had did his funeral, and it was like 1,000 stones that came to his funeral, all wearing red tams, marching in formation to pay their respects. So if neither one of them, Jeff Fort or Fred Hampton, never responded or acted on the letter that the feds had sent to them.
Let me jump in real quick, right? Don't go off, because you're just chopping it up right now. One thing I know, from the little bit of research, little historical research that I do. First, assalamu alaikum, everybody that's listening. And the youth were the movement, right? The youth was the movement. There's a lot of things that's different. Islam as you have it today is not the same brand of Islam that was promoted in the past. right? That's number one. Number two, I think we got to the point now. All of the pins are knocked down. Now there's nothing left for us except to reestablish ourselves. If you look at most of the movements that's out here now that the Muslims are following, you know, you either on the hardcore Ahl Sunnah path, or the hardcore Sufi path, or the hardcore Salafi path, right? None of the groups are dedicated to changing community life or affecting your life personally. You know, all of them are just like, it's, you know, Islam in and of itself, you implement it personally, but it also affects the whole community, right? Each one, all three of these groups that I name, you can build communities with them, but it's not a community based type of information brand or movement, right? Each of them are telling you, in honestly, let's keep it real. I'm not throwing no shade at any of the three groups, right? Each of these groups, they tell you that you have to learn this and implement it personally, which is fine. There's no problem with that, right? What happens after that? You build like a sense of like, you know, you've raised yourself up and you're looking down at the smaller people, right? What I'm saying is, now your dawah, now your call, now has become, you need to learn your far'ain, which is important, right? However, if it's part of the community's foundation and makeup, then there's no need to say, you know, this is what it is, what it is. You become dogmatic on those things and you forget the community life, right? In the midst of all this, we're forgetting the children. We're so, you know, the way that people are now with Islam, it's almost like collecting baseball cards, right? Where was I? I was just somewhere recently. It was a restaurant on the day they eat. Muhammad, I know you remember this. Brother came in, he was on the phone, and he was on the phone, and he was like, you know, basically this sheikh was with this sheikh, and that sheikh said don't take from this sheikh, and that sheikh said that this sheikh is this, and that hadith is weak because this sheikh said this shit, and it was just like, you know, and this is just one person, but you almost got like a whole city full of my sheikh is better than your sheikh, and that sheikh is better than this sheikh, and this sheikh is more knowledgeable than this sheikh, and this sheikh was recognized by this sheikh, and that sheikh didn't become recognized by that sheikh. Meanwhile, while you shaking and shaking, your children is out here shooting and killing, right? This is what's happening. So therefore, it's no longer like a man, woman, and child movement. It's a nafsi type movement. And so what comes out of the movement, your contribution to the movement, other than you sitting down learning, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not criticizing saying it's bad. But what happens is that the concern of the movement usually be two things: to transmit the information on what you're promoting and raise money so that the sheikh don't have to work and he can keep teaching. Now, this kind of like leads us to the point to where we at right now, right? This leads us to the point where we at right now. There's no productive conversations that are happening in order to build communities. Actually, they're being destroyed. I'll give you an example. Mama, you can attest to it as well. Usually when there's a new up-and-coming movement coming on the scene, they attack the older movement that's already established, right? Why are they attacking them? In order to steal more members and followers, to get their self recognized. If the movement was about, you know, building actually a community, then therefore you would see the children involved. You will find that their education is paramount, but everybody has broken down to the one denominator. Basically, there's no common denominator. They're just the denominator, right? Where every individual is worried about themselves, right? And then some of the things have gotten to the point. Now, I will say this: I used to be on that thing like, oh, people don't have money. People got money. People waste money. People eat more. The amount of food that people eat out in a week or even a month is a tuition at a madrasa. Let's keep it 100, right? Average cheesesteak now in Philadelphia is cost you at least $12 to $15. Halal cheesesteak.
Man, that's them sawed prices.
Nah, those are cheesesteak prices, Sheikh. Everywhere is like that. You ain't unless you eat some hit from the poppy store.
$25.
Nah, ain't no more $5. Who gonna give them to you? $5.
I said $25.
Oh, $25. Yeah, that's the haram joints. That's the famous haram joints.
No, it's
you ain't getting sauce is $25.
$25.
Oh man. But anyway, so we can take and support and fund our own effort, right? Now, the fact is that the children are being left out. The emphasis of the children now is more so, you got to do good in school so you can move to the next grade, which is fine. But then, as these children are doing this, they're missing out on Jumu'ah. Many of them are not praying while they're in school. So what does this teach them indirectly is putting the deen secondary. It's not primary. What's primary is waking up for school. Like now, Subh comes in about close to 4 in the morning. Right? If school was in right now, most parents ain't gonna wake them children up. Why? Oh, he needs his rest so he can go to school and do good, right? Some parents want to wake you up because you got to go to football practice later on, right? So therefore, this already shows what we're doing with our youth. Sometimes, even in the relationship, we have to put in just as much effort, right? But because everything is so economically driven, it's driven by accumulating wealth, right? All the Muslim has to do is take care of their obligations, and Allah will give them the rest, right? Now, I'm not saying that you don't go out and work, right? That's the first thing people hear that and be like, oh no, ain't no tables falling out the sky. You have to be on a serious intellectual level of mediocrity to start thinking like that, right? We need to be think tanks, and we need to think a little more maturely and a little more politically and intellectually astute than what we are. Sometimes will derail the whole conversation. You'll be moving in a mode where you're trying to build, and then that person to take and say, well, no, see, Allah Ta'ala is the only truth, and the only way we can change, Allah is in control of everything. I think we understand that. We're talking about how we're gonna, do this. That's the engine. That's the moving. That's what moves us forward. But how we gonna do these things? It starts off little by little. Sometimes we be thinking way too big. We want to build Azhar in the middle of the hood, and we ain't even got the money nor the people that's going to attend Azhar, right? If you look at all of the institutions in America, and we gotta be honest, right? All of the Islamic institutions in America, regardless of how high they are or whatever they're on, whatever their methodology is, what is the constituency that's in those particular programs? The constituency that's in those programs are usually Indo-Pak youth, Indo-Pakistani youth, a few Americans here and there, but it's never like a full-fledged. Firstly, I personally believe that we have to, like Imam Malik say, the Shaykh quotes Imam Malik. He said, "What saved the previous generation from destruction is they went back to the beginning, right? Meaning they went back to how things were done with the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahabas, right? So therefore, what we have to do is now we have to incorporate Islam in our everyday life. And at one point in time, we were doing that. Salat was paramount. Not just Salat in Jamaat was important. So important, you'll be almost ready to quit your job in order to pray at the masjid, right? Praying Jumu'ah was important, almost to the point that you'll quit your job in order to be at Jumu'ah. Or brothers took night jobs or whatever they had to do in order to sacrifice that time in order to get there. Children see that. We need living examples. The living examples that our children are getting today are on YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, TikTok, all of these things in social media, and they're indoctrinating our children, with non-Islamic ideas and practices, right? That we also uphold as well. We have this real extremely violent culture that we love, right? There's nothing, and don't get me wrong, everything has its place, right? Countries fight wars, right? Jihad is part of Islam, okay? So, therefore, you know that eventually you'll have to fight, but everything with us in our, it's like, you'll talk about, like this morning, in Philadelphia, people are, talking now. It's outrage, right? Because all these teenagers are doing all this killing and they're getting killed, and for some reason, there's an increase of women getting killed, but a lot of people are actually blind to the reality that some of the women that are being killed, and I'm not saying all of them, but a good portion of them, they're in the mix. They're in the mix. They're not just like, oh, the random old lady. This ain't the 60s. This ain't the 70s and 80s. Grandma, you took her bag, hit her in the head, and then she died immediately. No, some of these women are in the mix. They're in the mix of robbing people. They're in the mix of drug dealing, and so on and so forth. You do have those that you're random innocents, and then you have some of those that are spurred by domestic thing, meaning husband, wife, breakup, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Like the man, like I think it was 2 years ago, he killed. It was a Muslim he killed. She was his son's mother, and she was about to get married. He wasn't Muslim apparently, and she was about to get married, and he feared that he wouldn't see his son or something like that, or maybe that was the excuse that whatever. But he blew her head off, right? That's a domestic situation. Then you have other situations where the women are actually in the mix, and now you got them on camera shooting people too, shooting other women and shooting other men. This is a very violent atmosphere you live in. And the Prophet ﷺ talked about this. See, this is the thing. We have to really like look at things from the spectacle of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ talked about these things. He talked about the harj, right? The increase in bloodshed. How one of the minor signs at the end of time is that the person will be killed and won't even know why he's being killed, right? This is happening regularly, and it's starting to increase more. So, but what am I talking about with this violent, this violent atmosphere? If you listen to most people, they say, well, I was listening to this man this morning. I went to the store, and they were in the store, and they were talking about there was a woman, her boyfriend shot her in the back of the head, right? Or shot her in the neck or something like that, and she died, okay? And so the man was in the store. He was like, man, you got to be a punk in order to shoot a woman, and this, that, and the third. We used to throw our hands, and this, that, and the third. Bro, violence is violence. You can die by somebody punching you. Didn't Musa alayhi salam kill a man, with his hands? Right? So violence is violence. It's a matter of if it's supported by Allah and His Messenger. Right? Violence is violence. But we have this extremely volatile nature where everything is like just jump to the extreme. Right? I mean, even to the point now, our Islamic community. Let me tell you something fun that I found funny about community. I was reflecting on our Jamaat, right? Everybody has a problem with everybody, right? Everybody always have a problem with everybody. People always have a problem with another person, right? And then what I find interesting is that people have a problem with everybody to the point that they destroy everything around them, and then everybody leaves the masjid, and then it's just a couple people still sitting there. They come in and they got a problem with everybody. And then once they got a problem with everybody and they make all this fitna, and I got a problem, this person looked at me funny, and this, that, and the third, and everybody's gone, and the only people that's still sitting there is the imams. Tell me, how do you really want a Jama'ah? How do you really want community? You got a problem with everybody. See, the Sahabas, they weren't about finding faults and problems with everybody. We love to find errors with everybody. We don't like to take accountability for ourselves, but we want to hold everybody else accountable, right? Everybody got a problem. So therefore, you'll never have that prophetic model of a Jama'ah. You'll never see what the hadith means, where the Prophet ﷺ says, "La yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibba li akhihi ma yuhibbu li nafsihi." You'll never experience the reality of akmal iman, completion of iman, because you put every barrier. You put barriers in front of why you can't grow. And so then when it comes to our children can't flourish and they can't carry the legacy. We want some magic carpet to fly up out of the sky, some genie to come, floating the shake with the big white beard, and he waves his sibha over us and we all become righteous. Right? This is nothing but foolishness. This is television. This is television mindset. It's not real. Yeah, just sibha. Everybody's righteous now, right? There's no room for a person to make error. This is also a contribution. We're so hostile. This is a contribution on why we always getting divorced. This is a contribution. So what does our children find? Our children see us as quitters. We're not people. We're not legacy builders. And the people that try to build, we fight against them so much. We're either equal or maybe worse than Bani Israel. Right? And I'm talking about the bad ones. Because everything they tried to do, they destroyed it. They complained about everything. There was no good in nobody. Everything is destruction. We complain about our children, but none of us push our children to their potential. We look and find fault with everybody. Right? So this whole violent nature, what do you think is going to come out of that? What do you think is going to come out of that child if you're extremely violent and volatile? Right? How many 40-year-olds out here throwing fisticuff out here? Just, let's go. Come on. Like, yo, what happened, man? I'm sorry, brother. I just bumped into you. I didn't mean to bump into you. No, you meant to do that. You know what I'm saying? So the children, they take it to the next level. You do that with them watching YouTube all day, right? I was, a brother was showing me a TikTok video, right? And he said, it was funny because he said, this is Philadelphia. And so they had the guy in the video. He was doing that little shake that, right? And he got the gun and he like, hey, bro, give up the money, right? And this is where we at now. People will rob you, shoot you, and then next thing you know, they make a TikTok video shaking it, right? This is our young. No Toba, they're celebrating. Celebration, right? Everything is always about violence. And what we think because somebody can throw fists, that's an alternative to gun violence? You want to change something, you have to create an atmosphere where it's peace. Now, I'm not saying that you walk around and be vulnerable because the Prophet ﷺ didn't promote us to walk around and be vulnerable to people, right? You have to be aware of your surroundings. So yes, your children should learn martial arts, right? They should learn how to use a firearm, right? They should know all of these things. They should be involved in riyadh, sports, and things of that nature, right? But that's in order to create a mature individual, because when you have knowledge of a situation, right, you're better. Your production, you better. Your behavior is better. What they say, you know better, you do better. You know better, do better, right? So this is the thing. But now what we have now is our children listen to it all day long. There's not a song that does not promote violence, sex, and drugs. And remember, if you're not listening to the Quran, whatever it is that you're listening to, that is your qira'ah. That is what your recitation is. And what you listen to, it affects the heart. We can play that game all we want to, right? Remember your magic, you shake on a magic carpet, he should have waved the sibha that lets you know your eyes and your ears, your hands is the pathway to your heart. And what you let in it is what you're gonna put out on them limbs.
You know what you had just said about what you listen to was your qira'ah. I look at my children, my babies, right? Mm-hmm. 2 and 3, 3 and 4 years old. Not only do they know some of the songs that they older brothers and older sisters and their mother listen to, but they also can recite certain things like the 20 attributes and certain awrads that I used to do when it, you know, to keep them to make when they get riled up and crying and stuff.
Nah.
You know, them down. I'm talking about to the point. There's one joint, man. The whole family learned it. Because Asma, she used to be rough when she was a baby, so everybody learned it. You know what I mean, and as soon as she hear it, she'll calm down. And right now to this day, she still remember it. You know what I mean? So it's like by them being a sponge, by their minds being a sponge, you know, they pick up so much. They picking up so much stuff. You follow what I'm saying? So the like I was saying earlier, I said once they reach Mukallaf, the responsibility is on them now. You know what I mean? It's off us. You know what I'm saying? You know, look at our youth that are in the masjids, that are consistent, right? That are consistent in the masjid. You see the same faces. But when you do see new faces, other youth, it be what? They're friends. You know what I'm saying? Many of us, a lot of us, you know what I'm saying, our age, when we, you know what I'm saying, when new brothers come to the masjid or whatever, some of them be someone that that we're connected with. You follow what I'm saying?
No.
You know, so yeah, that's a real real good point. You follow what I'm saying? Like if you're not listening to the Quran, you listening to something else. That's your qira, like that's your Quran.
Yeah.
You know, Shaitan having a adhan too.
No.
His adhan is music.
Exactly.
What's in the music? Calling to zina, calling to violence, calling to haram.
Think about it, right? In the adhan, just in the adhan alone, things are known by its opposite, right? You get to the point, you say, hayya ala salati, hayya ala salat, right? Come to prayer, come to prayer. Then after that, hayya ala al-falahi, hayya ala al-falah, right? Come to your success, come to your success. The opposite of that is don't pray and go to your destruction. You can get so lost in television, music, social media, TikTok. That's why I don't even look at TikTok, right? If I do look at TikTok, I save it for the late hours of the night, and it's when I'm extremely tired, and it's about this much time. Because at one time, I finally got on TikTok, and I started watching videos, and before I know it, 2 hours had passed. So I got it when I got in my apps. It's all the way in the back of my phone. If I got an app in the back of my phone, that joint don't get looked at that often, right? But you get so caught up. That'd be the first thing you look at in the morning. Such and such posted a new TikTok. And you open it up, you'll look at that before you even make wudu. You'll look at that before you even make wudu. So this is what's happening, you know.
Assalamualaikum. My apologies, fellas. My apologies. What's going on?
Huh?
I said my apologies, fellas. What's going on?
Oh man, we knew you was coming.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told y'all, but you know, inshallah, make dua for Malik. He in the hospital. He's all right.
What happened? COVID? Nah.
He's in sepsis. He had a little infection, so you know, he kept him for a couple of days. He'd be good.
Okay.
So, but what's crazy is he was in an accident earlier that week too. Car accident, wrecked his car, but he's good though. Alhamdulillah. So, but
did he roll on the ground and pop an Alka-Seltzer Plus and act like foam was coming out of his mouth?
But yeah, so you know this thing, and so do the parents get all the blame, right? Not all the blame. If that child hasn't reached the age of mukallaf, that's also another problem. We're coddling and babying our children. We're giving them this idea, you know, that it's okay to be unprepared, right, and childish, all the way until you become an adult. But if they do some adult type of behavior at the age of 13 years old, guess where they're going? To jail. To jail. And they're not going to be treated like no little baby. So this is the thing. So, you know, society, they promote this idea, let kids be kids, which is fine. You know, you ain't paying no bills yet. But at the same time, they need to be mature. They need to become mature. Be responsible. Yo, look, this is such and such and so on and so forth. This is, you know, preparing them for these things. Sometimes our kids are so aloof and so, so out of touch. It takes them till they're about 25 to get it right. And that's just starting to get right.
But Imam Khalil, but when has it been cool, right? When did it get the green light that it was okay to harm adults? I was just thinking about me, when I was a kid, like when a lady, when we was out there living recklessly, right? When the old people walk on the street, the sidewalk, you move your butt out the way, right? You see Miss Cindy, you help Miss Cindy with the bags. You say, yes, ma'am, you welcome, ma'am. Or you sitting on the older folks' car. They call, say, yo, can you get off my car? Yeah, no problem. We off your car. When has it been cool to come up with the concept in their mind, like we're going to do this to one of our grandmothers? Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out there.
You got it, and you got it. And I'll tell you this, it's not nothing new. It's not nothing new, I'll be honest with you. Because I'm gonna tell you where it started at. The first time I ever disrespected an adult, I used to pop fly in the mouth. But where I actually, felt comfortable disrespecting an adult, when they started using crack.
So the crack era.
The crack era opened that door. Grown men. You treat them with disrespect. I mean, disrespectful. Kicking them in the butt, all kinds of stuff. But the thing is that drug also helped. It also helped create that atmosphere as well. Because that dependency on the drug, you get very childlike, child-minded. You'll think, you'll act childish. You start thinking foolish. You think you're smarter than the rest of the world. Nobody sees you, right? So it kind of like warrants that. Now, as a little kid, some little kids you always had that old head that would come in, y'all little kids, this, that, and the third. You got different types of old heads, right? It ain't no way I'm justifying and throwing this off, right? But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said one thing. He said, you got to have mercy on the youth and respect for the elders. And if that doesn't happen, laysa minna, right? You're not from us, okay? So you're not representing, you're not following the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you do the opposite. Sometimes our approach as parenting, right? We have to remember that Islam is superior and supreme. Sometimes we feel that the things that our mothers and fathers used to do to us is better than that of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Sometimes, I don't know if you ever hear sometimes how some parents talk to their children, bro. They call them all kinds of names.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my sister was great at that.
Or imagine a child that gets beat on every day, right? Like I said before you came on, I was talking about you create a violent atmosphere. That kid is going to spew violence. He could be the sweetest kid in the world, but he will switch. It will turn like a switch, and it'll show violence, right? What's the message saying when you have? I'm not talking about a discipline, not a discipline type of punishment. What about those parents that go extreme and start punching on the kids, hitting them with baseball bats? I have friends that got beat with baseball bats, got hit with shovels, axe handles, right? For forgetting your homework. Forgetting your homework. And they break a limb. That child, when they grow up, 9 times out of 10, and if you do some psychology, you do the statistics, I can almost put the numbers to prove my case. That person is gonna beat women if he's a boy, or he's gonna beat the hell out of his kids if he's a woman. The only thing that'll stop that is if that person has such a resentment to somebody beating them. Sometimes they go to the opposite, where the child don't get no discipline at all, and they just do whatever they want to do. So that violence, it creates this atmosphere. It creates this atmosphere. You see what I'm saying? Even a lot of times too, right? Think of the mind. People also always make a joke out of it, make light of the situation. You know how they be like, man, they couldn't bring slavery back. We got guns now. That type, that type of mentality is? That's an individual mentality. Slavery affected a whole group of people, right? If it was like that, you'll be organizing and moving as a unit in order to liberate people. The individual mentality is not helping anybody. It's only destroying us. We broke our family systems are broke down to the point that, mom and dad, there's no such thing no more. You know what I'm saying? People more so are now, focusing on just being co-parents, right? So, this is the reality of what's happening now. There's no more, listen, we need to work this thing, make sure our family is good, right? Back in the day, people used to stay together until the children were grown and then they get divorced. Now, we're so volatile. I ain't like that. I don't like what you said to me. And boom, and it's on from there. Our kids, they grow up around violence, shit.
Like another question too. Do you think it also, right? Accountability went out the window when it became that the grandmothers became the grandfathers and the grandmothers became babysitters instead of aiders.
Well, for sure, but you know why? It all goes back to the maturation. They're not becoming mature. We coddle children. One thing that used to work, and everybody, I grew up in the 80s, 90s. I was born in the 70s. I wasn't growing up with 70s babies. 80s and 90s. The one thing that everybody always used to say, they used to try to scare you out of having children, right? You better not have no children because you're gonna have to go to school. You know how many girls I seen go through school? One of my homies growing up, he was 13 years old. He had his first kid at 13. He had a set of triplets, right? At 13, bro. He had a set of triplets at 13. I forgot the dude is like, he got like some real good business. He went to college, all that. Him and his baby mama. I don't know if they got married or not, but whatever the case is, him and the children's mother. From 13, I think she was 15 and he was 13. Right, so sometimes we throw these things out there that you thinking, we're always preaching and breathing pessimism into our families. We're always pessimistic. It don't matter. We don't see the good in anything or anybody. And so, I grew up in an era where people would clown you if you knew how to read good. Like, you trying to act white, you're an Oreo. Look at you, man. Like, I guess I was supposed to just be sitting around drinking 40s all day and shooting hoops. That was really breaking the system. Yeah, let's break the system. Let's destroy the system, right? Even now, when you look at even these so-called protests, these protests always ends in violence. Always. It never ends, like, okay, let's sit down and have a solution. It always ends in violence. It ends in, we were out here peacefully marching, and then the end of it is, I don't know why these kids are tearing everything up the way they are. What? We are raised on violence. As Malcolm said, violence is American as apple pie. We're raised on violence. If you ain't getting beat in the house, you're going to get beat by the cops. You're raised on violence. The atmosphere is violent. So, how can we begin to change that? Really, as Muslims, we have to kind of like opt out and create our own little enclaves, even if you're in the cities. You have to make your atmosphere for you. Meaning, outside of your home, you have direct locations, masjid, school. If you go into the mall to shop, go to shop, come back, market, come back. Right? What happens is that we want to do, we desire to do everything that we see everyone else is doing. We're not content with Islam as our way of life. That's what's happening. We're not content, and so. With regards to these little children, if I knew them, I can almost guarantee you that they probably have a violent atmosphere. Even if it ain't in the home, it's in the neighborhood.
I believe it's also in the home too. Because if you look at some of the, looking in people's eyes, you can tell. You can see a whole story. And from what the picture they showed with the young kid, you could tell it was a lot of stress. Right, in the young man's eyes, you know what I'm saying. You can see even a young girl. They showed the young girl and her mother and the father. And did you see the picture of the father got his middle finger up and, you know, all these other things? Grown man. So you could tell that, you know, in the home is violent. You know, like you said, you know, if you think about how we grew up, man, you know, just the music, right? The music dictates our life, right? Right. And then you have young parents that's raising, you know, kids raising kids, and all they know is to act on what they're listening to and what they see. So I believe it started in the home, and we just don't have an answer to the people. What I feel as though we need to start doing, we need examples outside in society. We need examples, not just wealthy people, because they see wealthy people all the time. We have basketball wives. We have the Kardashians. We have
what do they
seeing
do?
rich folks.
And what do they do?
And they act
display
crazy
the
on
same
there.
behavior.
Right, display the same thing. So we already see that. They need examples outside of society of us policing our communities. Right? And the thing is that we're scared to police our communities. We're scared to be in the front line. And you know
what, I agree with you, right? But there's one thing that I disagree with. We don't need that magic shake like I was just talking about, coming and waving Sibha. We are that example that they have to see.
That's what I'm saying.
One of the things that brought me to Islam, it wasn't nobody running around preaching to me. I just watched the family structure, man, woman, and child. I used to play with some of the little Muslim kids, but they couldn't play with us too long when we were kids. We knew they was on something different. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, they be like, yo, we gotta go, man. Like, man, y'all always gotta go. Y'all can't, man, we gotta go. Right? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes some of them, you know, their parents, they talking to them. I mean, first of all, you greeting me, as they used to say back in the day, with the universal greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum, right? They used to greet, you know, you hear them greet, they greeting differently. You're like, yo, something's up. What's up with y'all? So, you know, that was the thing. We always look for that. We seen people drunk. We seen people fighting all the time. We seen dudes high. We seen people, you know, we have seen pimps, hoes. We have seen it all. But when you seen that man, woman, and child, because fathers was a rare commodity in my projects, you know what I'm saying? They came around once every 5 years because they got paroled. And he didn't stay home long after that.
But that's what I'm saying. But we need fathers outside playing football with all the young guys.
That we used to have.
You get what I'm saying? That's what I mean. We need that again. But we need it by groups, right? We need a group of men, right? The only time they should see, you know, a block festival, such as, you know, the bouncy chair, the bouncy thing and the slides, it shouldn't be when a drug dealer invests in the community or on a birthday. They need to start seeing that amongst a group of young men or adult men doing that for the communities. People who really care. You get what I'm saying? They need to start seeing that. You know, what claimed us to the drug dealer is that we seen what the drug dealer was doing. He had the fly car. He had this. He had this. He gave back, you know, even though he was draining the resources from the community, but he gave back the little certain things. You know, we used to have a drug dealer in our community that used to do summer league basketball, right?
Well,
summer league basketball.
You gotta make Islam look.
You're talking about a particular era, like, and when I was.
But that era should have never went away.
Then we need to start doing that. We got to start. Yo, let's try to find these resources to come up with basketball things for these kids.
What drug dealer? It was the pimp and the gangbangers and the political dude and the drug dealer and the gang chief.
He was that figure. I don't know if you really paid attention to over the last maybe 7 years, maybe 10. If you look at it, and I'm talking from a non-Muslim's perspective, right? Do you know that every black hero has been diminished in the eyes of the black community, right? Every last one of them. And usually how they diminish their role is their participation in what their sexual activity is outside of their craft. Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Ray Rice. Remember Ray Rice knocked his wife out. You again, right? All of these guys, they destroyed their image, and so now, and I don't know how, but every person that makes it to some kind of league, they all get caught up in some kind of case. They get caught up in some kind of case, something going on. So, like I said, it's just always promoted violence and failure, violence and failure, violence and failure. Right? You won't see it if you cut it off. If you protect yourself from seeing it. You know what I'm saying? From seeing those things. But it's always thrown in your face and creating a negative image. So, Go ahead, y'all.
Okay.
So, y'all ain't questions.
Anybody got any questions? Hey, Abdul Hakim, he had made a comment earlier saying that we need homeschool our children. We stop sending them to schools for the Catholic schools. Right. Now, the thing is with homeschooling our children, we can homeschool our children, but many of us as parents, we don't have a set curriculum on how to even teach our children the secular subjects. Now you have, like, I remember with Sheikh Muhammad Yaqubi, the Lord Ta'ala fortify him. He had said that his father taught him everything. His father taught him Arabic, taught him Quran, Hadith, Fiqh, Usul Fiqh, mathematics, science. He taught him everything, right? However, his father, Sheikh Ibrahim al Yaqubi, Allah Yahamahu, he had the fortification. He had the qualifications to teach all of them things to his sons. Now, growing up, you know what I'm saying, a couple of families that I know, their children went to public school, went to the same high school, but when they got home, before they did their homework, they spent like maybe an hour on the Quran or an hour on Hadith, you know what I mean, or an hour on Sirah, right? And the biggest thing that was being taught in the 80s was like Sirah, the Sirah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. One book, Rasul Ikram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, was one of the small books of Sirah that was being taught in Taleems in the home. You mean, now the thing is, like with homeschooling our children, some parents, some households got to have two incomes. You got to have two. So the mother working and the father working. When do they allot the time to teach the children to homeschool them? Meaning they're gonna have to find a tutor to actually assist them in homeschooling and teaching the children. Plus, you have to be committed and dedicated as well. Because many of us are not even committed and dedicated to just the small things. We're committed and dedicated to dunya, getting dunya, but we're not committed and dedicated to deen. So if we're not even committed and dedicated to deen, how are we going to be committed and dedicated to homeschooling our children? These secular sciences and everything, right?
Did anybody ever see this new math that's out? This new math that these kids is doing? Did you ever witness that yet, Abu Muhammad? Or did you email Khalil?
I don't know.
How they gotta break down the math problem?
Well, they always coming up with different ways.
Right. Well, so how many of us know how to do that? I don't know how to do that. I can't homeschool. I don't know how to do. I'll be in school myself right now. I got to go back to third grade.
From what I've noticed on how they breaking down math problems now, from what I've noticed from my stepchildren, is that they actually breaking the math problem down the same way. They just using a different method on how to break it down. But it comes out to the same answer. It comes out to the same way to correct the answer. It's just a different method. Now, the one thing about mathematics is that it's a language as well. Mathematics is a language, right? It's actually a universal language. You know what I'm saying? So you have different things. I remember this brother. He was a mathematician. He was also on the youngest security member on the security of Malcolm X. He was like 14 years old when he was on the security. His brother name is Hiawatha Brown. And in the movie Malcolm X,
I heard that name before.
Yeah, in the movie Malcolm X, they had someone depicting him, and they showed him on there. Well, however, you know what I'm saying, the mathematics that he had that he used, it was like they not even using it, and they not even using it in the schools, right? Some college students in some colleges they utilize his form of mathematics. Make, you know what I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know, you know what I'm saying, how, if it has started to become popular, you know what I'm saying, but however, you know, it just makes the point, you know what I'm saying, broaden that, you know, it's a universal language. You know what I'm saying? Like, even the other thing with mathematics is that any person who's good in math, that person may be able to pick up more than one language, because the same part of the brain that calculates math is the same part of the brain that be able to generate and be able to pick up languages and learn languages. Now, one thing that I've noticed with me is that I'm horrible. I'm horrible at math, right? But I could pick up a language by listening to it consistently. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Amharic, I had picked it up in 6 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Just listen to it. I wasn't speaking it in 6 weeks, but I was able to understand it in 6 weeks, to the point where I heard a conversation where they was speaking in Amharic to a sister about her reasoning for why she wanted to marry a brother that's from America instead of marrying a brother from Ethiopia. And the thing is, like, one of the brothers, he was like speaking in Amharic and he was speaking in Arabic too, because he knew that I understood some Arabic. So to make me not feel out of place or left out, he was speaking some Arabic too, but nobody understood, nobody knew or picked up that I was understanding everything they was talking about. So when they had left, I had told my wife at the time about the conversation. So then, you know what I'm saying, when my brother-in-law, he had came back to the house, you know what I'm saying, I had told him about it. He was pissed off, right? He was pissed off. She was kind of upset too, but the thing is that what I had noticed is that the sister kind of like set herself up for that criticism. You know what I'm saying? They didn't set her up. She set herself up. You know what I'm saying? And this was during the time, I think, this was during the time when a lot of brothers, they was trying to marry women from Ethiopia and bring them to America. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. The thing is with, you know what I'm saying, with languages, you know what I'm saying, some people they're able to grasp them. You know what I'm saying? It's faster than they can grasp mathematics.
To get back on the topic a little bit of the homeschool. I mean, I know here in PA, you got two types of homeschool. What they call homeschool now, the virtual school, isn't actually homeschool. The only thing home about it is that they're at home and they have virtual teachers. But PA also lets you develop your own curriculum as well. That's a homeschool. And that's when you got to check in, show your curriculum, I think like annually or quarterly or something like that. You build your own curriculum. But, I mean, mathematics is part of the sciences. If you look at the West African Islamic curriculum, mathematics was part of it. So we didn't really start developing this mind state, Islamic and secular, until we started, delving into the modern times. And I think some of those books that influenced the leadership's minds, some of the books were good, but they were a little bit too modernist, to the point that we abandon our own tradition. That's where it clashes at. We have to be able to keep the philosophy under control. Sometimes with the the philosophy, and then sometimes we have to know where to adapt, right? Like for instance, me, I had a hard line position against voting, but however, there's times where voting is necessary, right? Some people, oh no, we don't vote for anything to kufar. It's a form of strategy and it's necessary. Sometimes organizing as a block and not voting is also a strategy as well. So it's all about contemporary, but you will never the people. And when I'm saying the people, I'm talking about the main body of the Muslims will never ever experience this if everybody's running away from the concept of having a Jamaat and having leadership, right? Because the leader is there to look out for the well-being of the community overall. That's usually what the leader does. He creates the curriculum, right? He makes sure that the times of prayer are known, right? And so on and so forth, so that people, so that the people can, practice their deen without a bunch of barriers in the way, right? And so one of the things is that children have to be involved. Now, who's responsible for them? They're responsible for themselves if they reach puberty. Their actions. But responsibility, what does it really mean to be responsible? Most of the time when we're preaching responsibility to adolescents, when we're preaching responsibility to them, what are we saying to them? You have to be responsible. You have to make sure you fold your clothes up. You have to make sure you make your bed up when you get out of bed. You have to make sure you wash your face. You have to make sure you brush your teeth, right? But how often are we talking to them and telling them, before you go into the bathroom, you have to make this dua, right? Before you go to sleep at night, you must recite these surahs. These will protect you throughout the night. When you wake up in the morning, you recite these. This will protect you. That's also teaching responsibility. Oh, we don't go near these things because these things are haram and they'll land us into the hellfire, right? These things are important. This is more important than us knowing mathematics. We're not ruling out mathematics. Like I said, if you have like this really mediocre mindset, you'll be, are you going to say that mathematics is important? We're not saying that. We're talking more from a Muslim's perspective, right? Some of us listen to argue. So the only thing they're going to hear is what they want, the point they want to argue, right? So are we dropping the ball? I don't think some of us even see ourselves as a contributor to the future. We just live it. That's just the reality. Some of us are just living life. We don't see anything we're doing as a contribution to the future. We just living life. We just here. Like we just all that we're supposed to do is we're supposed to be happy and we're supposed to cry. That's it. Being happy is the equivalency of obtaining Jannah, and having moments where you sad is equivalent to being in the hellfire. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "A dunya sijnu mu'min wa jannah to the kafir." Right? He said that the dunya, it is the prison to the believer. Why? Because of the restrictions. He can't do everything that the disbeliever does, and it's jannah to the kafir. It's a paradise for the disbeliever. Right? So, where's this accountability? How do you teach them accountability? You got to teach them, refer them back to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's no way around it. As a Muslim, if you're a Muslim, there's no way you're gonna get around without practicing it, without referring it back to Allah and His Messenger. Ain't no way you're gonna get around it. So let's look at a couple comments, inshallah. Kids become desensitized towards violence when violence and negligence is prevalent in the home. Anyone with too much time on their hands may find themselves in hot troubled waters. This also may be an issue with our youth. We're not engaging them, stimulating their minds. They're bored, have too much time on their hands. Back in the day, kids used to travel down south to grandma and grandpa's house to learn life skills. If not, we would be up 4 a.m. wiping down baseboards. Yeah, that's old school for real. When we got sent down south, I didn't know if it was reward or punishment. It used to be a punishment to me because it used to have big bugs. It was slow. It was like being down south used to be like watching paint dry on the wall. You'd be like, man, But I did learn a lot from it as well, as was mentioned, in the comment. But it, kids, the children are responsible. Their failure is our failure. we lack to transmit. The student is only as good as the teacher, right? So when you learn accountability, you take accountability, they'll learn to take accountability as well. And once you take accountability, then you can come up with better ideas, or you can accept advice on how to make things better. But if you're always dishing out the blame, then you can't come up with an idea how to make anything better. You're always defensive. Always, no, it's your fault. It ain't my fault, it's their fault. No, it's your fault. No, this, that, and the third. Right? We have to look at our situation, our current present situation, as it is what it is. And we have to develop and work around it. And we have to trust and rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put the barakah in what we're trying to do in order to facilitate it and make it easy for us to execute what we're trying to do. Because little by little adds up versus nothing at all. Right? So personal experience. My 3 oldest children, I taught them Arabic before I had got married, right? It was just me and them, and I would have Arabic classes with them every Saturday for 1 hour, right? Then I put them in this madrasa every Saturday, right? And so I was doing that all the way up till I got married. Then when I got married, I used to teach my wife, and she excelled in such a way that she was able also to help and contribute, right? And so up until she got to that point where she was able to teach the children, all I used to ask her to do was make sure that the children went to the class, right? You still had to make a way. You had to make a way, right? Sometimes we'll just throw the whole baby out in the bathwater to the point where we're sitting idle rather than building on what we got. We'll throw it all out. We'll complain, oh, she ain't doing this. Look, let's just build on this, right? Okay, if she see that he ain't doing it, okay, we're going to build on that, right? But sometimes what happens is we just don't do nothing at all. But when we're not doing anything at all, what happens is Allah ties you down, and you become frustrated, and your mind is wore down, right? To the first thing you think of is one of 3 things: go outside, go get your tablet, or go play the game. And so all that good time that they're doing all of that, it passes by, and there's no benefit. And then one day arises, and it's time to pray. And hey, call it a comment. Children don't know how to call it a comment. Go make wudu. They don't know how to make wudu. You see what I'm saying? And then that also translates because Salah is a protection for us. And if you ain't praying, most young people don't know how to pray. They're not praying. They don't know how to pray, right? So this also becomes problematic as well. The lack of prayer. When you're lacking in prayer, nobody's praying, then what? Right? So that has an effect on their attitude, their thinking, and behavior as well. You see what I'm saying? So this is something that's important. Prayer is a foundation. The creed is a foundation. Learning the halal and the haram is a foundation. Learning the seerah of the Prophet is a foundation. But this is one of the things that I've seen coming out, especially the most recent events that's been happening with young people. People are campaigning that the parents should serve a punishment for the child's misbehavior, right? Now, from an Islamic perspective, if that child is a mukallaf, then that parent is responsible for that child, right? Usually, if it's something where someone a loss of life and the person has a problem with it mukallaf, where they're not mature, meaning they're not sane, right? They don't have the intellectual capacity. They may not have reached the age of puberty where they're held accountable for their own behaviors, right? Then the parent is responsible for them, and usually they repay that in blood money, right? And this time, some of the things I've been reading, some of the comments, I'm like, man, I'm glad some of you guys aren't the leader. Some people are like, look, they need to be thrown out their house. What is putting a family out in the street going to do to a child that did an action that the parent really didn't have nothing to do with? Now, as far as the upbringing and things like that, yes, but they're not actually responsible for the action that's actually done, right? However, why punish the entire family? Because the only thing you're going to do is create more of a dangerous environment. Because when people start losing out and they hit rock bottom, they go back to what they know how to do best, right? So, these are a lot of things that we have to take in consideration. So, who's responsible? Everyone plays a part. Everyone plays a part, and people have to follow a chain of command. There's a hierarchy. The Prophet ﷺ gave us a hierarchy. He said, each and every one of you are shepherds, right? He said, and you'll be questioned about your flock. The Imam is a shepherd, a Ryan. Imam or Ryan, right? The Imam's a shepherd. He'll be questioned about his Jamaat, right? The man is a shepherd. He'll be questioned about his family. The wife plays the role of a shepherd. She'll be questioned about her husband, about her responsibility, about the family. The slaves are shepherd. They'll be questioned about their master's property and so on and so forth. So there's always, if you're Muslim, you have to be ready to be accountable. Accountability is an attribute of a Muslim. Everything can't constantly be as they fault. Accountability. If you're open to accountability, then you're open to ideas on how to fix problems. If you're open to accountability, then you yourself will start. You'll recognize that, okay, I'm failing here, but let me start over there. Accountability has to be taught, has to be made, and it's something very important to a family. So that, inshallah. Oh, hold on. There's one more. We have to stop avoiding our children as if they're burdens. Absolutely, and that's like the fad today. And I understand children can be nerve-wracking. You develop patience and hilm, right? First time I ever heard this. First time my mind was ever brought to this idea. I know what forbearance is, clemency, but I never knew it to be implemented on a personal level until one day we was in a class. And we was going over Usul Wilayah, right? And he talked about a point in there about having restraint, right? And the example that he gave two examples. The restraint is when your child breaks your brand new CD. Bruh, I know what it feels like when your kid breaks something that you value and cherish. You ready to rip their head off. He said, at that moment, you have to make a decision on whether you're going to go overboard and abuse the child or you're going to practice some sort of clemency, some sort of forbearance. The same way when the Prophet ﷺ went to Taif and the people threw stones and things at him and shoes and everything, and Jibril was on deck waiting to destroy that town, but he told him no, because there'll be some of the best Muslims, the best reciters of the Quran. Right? That's forbearance. If you're not around other people, right? If you're not around other Jamaat members, right? In Usul Tariqah, Muhammad, you can complete this sentence. In the absence of the Sheikh, who becomes the teaching Sheikh?
Salah ala Nabi sallallahu alayhi.
And then what's the other one?
The one among the brothers in the Jama'ah who have some of the qualities of the teaching sheikh, but they had deficiency in some of the other qualities of the teaching sheikh.
Well, see, right there, that explanation, you just like, yo, we all Negroes, but we Negroes. They said the sheikh who said the brothers.
You deal with them. You deal with them as brothers and what they're deficient in, and you deal with them as a teaching sheikh and the quality.
I'm just quoting word for word. You're giving an explanation. I'm giving word for word what the sheikh said. In the absence of the sheikh, the prayer upon the Prophet ﷺ becomes a teaching sheikh, and then also he put the Jama'ah, the brothers, before he put the salah on Nabi, right? You have to be around other people. Each one teach one. We bring out better characteristics out of each other. You'll learn certain things. We don't know everything. You may learn a thing from a brother that may have learned one thing from either his teacher or reading a hadith or acting on an ayat that you didn't practice, but you be around that person enough, you begin to practice that thing too. You see what I'm saying? That was my point. You know, despite the person's deficiencies, right? How do we learn about the benefits of Ayatul Kursi? We learned it from the greatest liar of all time, Shaitan, right? But the Prophet ﷺ affirmed that what he said was the truth, right? So this is my case in point. So, you know, we have to begin to create that atmosphere. And I know sometimes it's hard. You know, you got a lot of single parents, right? You got fathers that got children, you know, without a wife, and you also got women who have children without having a husband. We have to make Islam paramount. We can't just, you know, get tired. Yo, put this YouTube video on. All right, that's it. All right, Khalas. No, we have to really sit down. And if we don't know, we have to go out and seek the knowledge and bring it back to our families. We have to be accountable. We have to put our children on restrictions, right? There shouldn't be no, you know, 13, 14-year-old running around 1, 2 in the morning, right? It shouldn't, right? It shouldn't be like that, especially girls, or boys for that matter, but especially girls, right? Accountability has to be, you know, executed, right? You know, make the masjid the center point. When the Prophet ﷺ got to Medina, the masjid was the first thing built. The first thing built. Then the souk. Take care of your livelihood. And then the homes. Right? Just in those manners. The masjid, get your money, and establish your homes. But our families have to be built on Islam. We're losing too many of our youth, and they're being influenced, you know, by these corrupt non-Islamic practices, you know, and it has to change. It's got to get worse before it get better. And I'm not glad that these things are happening, but however, I'm glad it is provoking the awareness of adults, where it's making them wake up and become of what's around them. Inshallah, you ain't got nothing to add, man.
Another.
Go ahead, hit that door and take us out of here.
I wanted to go back to about the salah.
No.
You know, one of the things that about the prayer, about the having the correct creed, having, you know, saying fiqh. Come on, having fiqh. One thing that we don't engage in enough of, and it's because it's a lot of us is not praying, is that the tasawwuf, the muraqabah, the ihsan, we're not cultivating that in our practice. All right, so we may establish the salah, and we may learn, but we're not getting the full benefit of what we're learning and what we're practicing, because we're not gauged into the spiritual perspective of what's connected to the salah and the proper talk and the proper creed, right? The tasawwuf, the ihsan, is what brings the spiritual perspective and how it's connected. You look at Umdat al-Ubad. The Umdat al-Ubad is not just the text on ibadah, but it's also the spiritual connection of the ibadah, right? So I remember one time a brother was saying that the problem is that you don't make dhikr, right? And the brother asked, how do you know I don't make dhikr? He said, because your behavior proves that you don't make dhikr. You're indecisive. You're not sound in your judgment. You can't make a decision. You're all over the place mentally. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know what I'm saying, that's the sign that you're not making dhikr. You know what I'm saying? Even establishing education in the household, all of them sciences has to be incorporated in the household. This, you know what I'm saying? This is why the daily talim and reciting after soup, the last 10 surahs in the Quran, the awrad that you do with your family, you know what I'm saying, with your family, the wiradul sayful haq, to where the, you know what I'm saying, it gets it establishes a foundation to get the household accustomed to making the dhikr, right? Into making the dhikr. Hold on, son. So that, you know, this is what I wanted to add to that, because is very important. You look at how a person, they suffer from chronic waswas, or they suffer from not being able to um, commit and be dedicated to a particular program. Right? So, you know what I mean, you look at when that individual, they start getting accustomed to a practice and making dhikr, doing an awrad, doing a dhikr. I mean, they, you know what I'm saying, their chronic waswas generally starts to leave. Their indecisiveness generally starts to leave. When they move from reading a few ayats a day to a hips a day to a juz a day, you know what I'm saying? These spiritual illnesses that they're affected with, that they're afflicted with, they begin to leave. And all of this is a part of the dhikr. Learning is a part of the dhikr. You know what I'm saying? But specifically, the dhikr that I'm talking about is with the tasbih. I mean, either on your hand with the sipha. Many people, they don't want it. They say, well, sipha is bid'ah. You know what I mean? Sipha is bid'ah. But the fact is, it's not just using. You know, it's just a mechanism to keep count. You know what I'm saying? Some people, they say, well, it's better to make dhikr to do it on your hands. The problem ain't doing it on your hands. The problem is that some people ain't doing no dhikr at all. You know, so if you're gonna use your hands, most people that use sibha, the type of dhikr that they do, you won't be able to do it on your hands. You ain't gonna be able to do 10,000 salah ala nabi a day. You ain't gonna be able to do 16,641 yalatif a day or a week. You know what I'm saying? If you're using your hands, one, you're gonna lose count, because you know you're not gonna have the ability to know how to keep count on your hands, right? So with a sit pad, you ain't gonna miss. It's either 99 or 100, and then you have other mechanisms on there to count 100 each. You know, so to 100,000. And you have you know, it's a method of keeping count. You know, so the individuals that are engaged in these practices, you know, they're gonna have, it's gonna bring the balance to everything else. Like, you can consistently learn, yeah, you know something, but you can't put it into practice. So you put it into practice because you're not engaged into tasawwuf. You still doing the same type of behavior that you had been doing before, you know what I'm saying, that you try to bring from your jahiliyyah into Islam. Or you're not consistent. You practicing deen for a year, you're not practicing it for another year. You're practicing deen for 2-3 years, and you're not practicing deen for another 2-3 years. Look, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It gets so consistent with that, is that you look up, you've been Muslim for 20 years and ain't practiced the deen half of that. But you know so much, or you have so much information. I mean, you have so much information, but because you haven't practiced anything, you still know more about your jahiliyyah than you know about Islam. You know, so alhamdulillah, that's what I wanted to add, inshallah. Um, I'm gonna mute my mic. I gotta handle something here.
All right, inshallah. So before Sheikh Muhammad comes back, so basically, where we recommend our solution to the common problem with the youth. Don't look at how bad the situation is, but just address the situation that you're currently facing. And the best way to face, with that is begin with education, implementation of the education, right? Focus on that. Create activities of your own for your family, and you may have to actually condemn and stop being so understanding or relating to it because you came from that. You may have to actually condemn that lifestyle. You know, one form of violence isn't the alternative to the more extreme form of violence. Well, he ain't killing with a gun; he's killing with a knife. And even then, when you watch politics, with all of the politics, they start talking about, we need to tighten down on gun laws and so on and so forth. If you took away guns, people would kill each other with knives. You took away knives, people would kill each other with rocks. You always find something, to kill someone with. So, but rather yet is change the violent and the volatile nature, you know, of the people that's contributing, to the violence. You know, everybody that has a disagreement with you isn't your op, right? Because the op, if you're just saying like, that's just my opposition, like my opponent or something like that, in a more competitive nature, then yes, I can understand that. But when you're saying op, that usually has the connotation or the connection with the worst case scenario is that you eliminate your opposition, right? So that type of mentality and that type of vocabulary should change. And I get it; it's used as slang, but when people that's really in the streets, they're not using that as slang, like, or in a competitive nature. Actually, they are using it. Where they start saying, "Yo, we up 2-1," meaning we just killed 2 people to your one that you killed to ours, right? So they're really playing Call of Duty in their mind. So I mean, like I said, we have to begin to change the atmosphere. So with that, inshallah, we hope that people will begin to take that education and preach and promote accountability, and also teach our family conflict resolution, right? Just the last thing I just want to emphasize on, just to drive the point home. With violence, we grow up in a violent atmosphere. Usually, we teach our kids to fight from the age of 1. Fight, get them, man, right? Fight. You know, we gotta change that narrative. We gotta change that narrative, inshallah. So with that, I'll stop there. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Go ahead, Sheikh Muhammad, take us home, brother.
اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق وهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره وقدره العظيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم آمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق وهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدر ومقدار العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Everyone, good evening.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, it was a real good discussion. Alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able many of us to get some benefit from it, and the people to benefit from it, and have to implement some of the points that was mentioned in this discussion. And if not even implemented, just reflect on it. I mean, because as we continue on, it's gonna get we're gonna see some change, and we're gonna see some digression. I mean, so make dua. We'll continue to make dua that Allah Ta'ala protect us
I mean,
and better our condition, and to elevate our youth. You know what I mean, to make, you know what I'm saying, to be the change that we're talking about. All right, so everyone have a blessed evening.
don't forget to like and share and subscribe. For those who are new listeners, following us, subscribe, inshallah, and get the updates of all our classes on YouTube and Facebook. And, when we on Twitter too, believe me, on Twitter.
Yeah,
Check out our website, masterdanfolio.com. Inshallah.
and pretty soon come in the clubhouse, inshallah.
Come to Clubhouse. Assalamu alaikum.
Oh snap!
Like,
Oh
That's
snap!
that's the after party, brothers. That's the after party. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam.